This week, we take a look at the raising of Lazarus from the Gospel of John. Then we take a look at Ezekiel's Valley of the Dry Bones. And we wrap up with the heart of Romans in Romans chapter 8. We hope you'll join us for this week's episode of Hear These Words. Hello and welcome to Hear These Words, a podcast and video series from Good Shepherd Episcopal Church in sunny Tequesta, Florida. I'm Sanford Groff.
And I'm Alex Sarah Wolfington.
And every week on the podcast, we take a look at the readings assigned for the upcoming Sunday from the Revised Common Lectionary. We're in year A, and we're looking at the fifth Sunday in Lent. The words we hear are John 11, 1 through 45, the raising of Lazarus. Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14, all about flesh and bones. And then Psalm 130 and Romans 8, 6 through 11. Romans 8, the heart of Romans to me, and a great passage as well. So, welcome. We're back in the church.
Here we are. I like being in here.
That's good.
Yeah.
When Jim and I were in the youth room, the youth are working on Stations of the Cross for Good Friday.
Yes.
So they have all of these notes up on the wall. So
Yes.
every wall space is covered with these notes. And I told them that we filmed in there last week.
Were they okay with it?
No, they were not okay. Could you do that? Those are our private notes. And I'm like, okay, so now you're going to want to go back and watch the previous week and try to discern whatever the notes were that they were. But join us on Good Friday at 6 o'clock for Stations of the Cross
it'll be beautiful.
led by the youth group out in the courtyard.
They're so sweet.
It's
I
great.
love them all so much.
All right.
Here we go.
So, John 11, 1 through 45. This is the raising of Lazarus. It's another really long gospel reading. Last week that you preached on, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, that you preached on was the woman at the well. And here we continue in that same vein with Lazarus.
Yes. And what a story it is.
Uh-huh.
Would you like me to start? Would
Sure,
you like to start?
No, you can. Oh, I was writing my Easter letter this morning, so
Okay.
I sent out an Easter kind of letter from the rector, and I was. This is a very minute detail, but I was comparing and contrasting the binding, the cloths, that are on Jesus and that are in the tomb after Jesus' resurrection, with the cloths that Lazarus has been bound in, and what he says. At the very end of this passage, the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth and his face wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus says to them, unbind him, let him go. And I love that imagery here. It contrasts with Jesus, who resurrects in the night with no one's assistance that we know of. And so here Jesus is commanding the people, it's your job to actually unbind him, right?
Right.
I mean, he brings him back to life, but it's the job of the people to unbind him, to remove the strips of cloth. Anyway,
that's fascinating.
A little bit of a nerdy take on it, but I thought it was
free.
I thought it was kind of interesting about the role that, the role that the role that the community plays in resurrection. That there is a role for us to do the work, even after the resurrection.
I think that's really interesting because I've always thought of this story as Jesus freeing Lazarus from death. But you're right, there's work for us to pick up once Jesus begins the work for us. He sets the stage and we have to follow through as community. And he didn't tell one person to do it. He told a group of people to do it.
The whole group. I think, and I'm guilty of this too. It's like, I've got a great idea. Here's my great idea. And now I'm done with my great idea and you can go ahead and figure it out. No, we have to actually do the thing. That new life has invited and that we've discovered in our midst.
Absolutely. And that is the hard part because the follow through, it's like with anything. It's the adulting part of the idea.
It is.
That is hard. And Jesus calls us to adult here.
Yes.
Yeah. Not easy.
You kind of look at a project or something that you take on and then about halfway through it, you're like, why did I why did I want to do this again?
Did I raise my hand or did
Right.
someone else raise it for? Was I voluntold on this?
Okay, your thoughts?
So,
Take us in a different direction, maybe?
I love that, Jesus knows that he can raise Lazarus from the dead, and yet he cries anyway. And he grieves anyway. He's very caught between the human experience
Right.
and his true Christological self, right? And we've all heard me say a whole lot, John is the gospel in which is the highest Christology.
Yep.
And so Jesus is constantly in this divine place. He's always in his state of grace. And yet this is a very human moment for Jesus in John to cry and grieve along with the other people who are grieving. And I see it as a time in which Jesus is meeting us where we are yet again, and knowing and understanding that the process of grieving is a very human experience. In fact, I was just having a conversation with my husband yesterday because we have a 14-year-old dachshund. Yeah. And she is the little chewy nugget of our family. She's the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop. Right. And we're getting some test results, whether or not she has Cushing's disease. She's very old. And so he's very freaked out about how I'm going to react. And he's like, you seem really okay with this. I'm like, well, she's 14. Right. I mean, they live about 2 to 4 years after they get diagnosed with this disease usually. And I'm very like, she's the center of my heart. I love her so much. And yet it's a human thing to go through grief. And he was like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm like, but you can't
for
exist.
For himself or for you?
Just he's going to be sad too. Because like this dog was the dog that like his son held when he was 8. And like, this dog has played, was the first dog. And so I think too, he's very like rejecting his own pre-grieving. Right. And yet it's part of life. Jesus even shows us that here. Right. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm torn between the pastoral implications of that, right? Like how are we attentive to our grief even in light of the resurrection? Yeah. For our loved ones, our dogs, all dogs go to heaven,
all
right?
All dogs go to heaven.
But that we can it's complicated. And the way I say it in funerals is that, there are layers of emotions going on simultaneously. Yes. At the one layer, you have sadness and grief, but at another layer, you have faith and hope. And I think that those things are not as kind of contradictory as they seem. I think this is a great gospel, as you're pointing out, where we actually see them sandwiched together.
And it's not only faith and hope, I think, but it's joy.
And there is joy, right? There is joy.
There is joy that we know that we'll see them again in heaven, and that it doesn't just end with death. That's one of the greatest gifts of Christianity, I think, is that we know that they're still. And on that,
that note, the other difference, as I was thinking about differences between Lazarus and Jesus, Jesus is resurrecting for forever, resurrecting for 50 days until he ascends into heaven, where he's seated at the right hand of the Father. Lazarus is resurrecting to return to his ordinary life for some period of time, and then he dies. We don't hear about that in Scripture. We don't know when he dies. We don't know what happens when he dies. But Lazarus's Lazarus's kind of physical resurrection in this moment is not to resurrect him into the heavenly places like what we hope for all of us, but to a few more years or however long, months,
as an earth dweller.
So there is this joy in his resurrection. There is this kind of excitement about that. But his life and his community's life will not go without grief again. And so how do we kind of hold that with our faith in a place that I think can feel a little vulnerable at times?
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good Lenten reflections as we approach Easter, right?
Yes, for sure.
Good. Moving on?
Yes.
Okay. Ezekiel 37, very kind of very famous passage, probably.
Very.
Yeah, it's like a Sunday school staple. The hand of the Lord came upon me and brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the valley of bones, right? Mortal, can these bones live? And, the person says, oh God, oh Lord God, you know. And the Lord says, prophesy to these bones and say to them, oh dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says to the bones, I will cause breath to enter you and you shall live. I will lay sinews on you and you will cause flesh to come upon you and cover you with skin and put breath in you and you shall live and you shall know that I am the Lord. And it's just this, the valley of dry bones is typically what this passage is referred to. And it kind of goes right hand in hand. You can see why the lectionary writers put this together with Lazarus.
You absolutely can. And I do love the line, thus says the Lord God, come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain that they may live. It's very reminiscent. And I read an article about this quite a while ago, drawing a parallel between the ancient understandings of the four winds and on this continent, the Native American understanding of the four winds, and how these cumulative ancient understandings are what gives us all life.
Right.
And that's a very moving,
yeah,
it's a very moving thing when you think about, there was no communication between the Native Americans here on this continent and the folks in the times of the Old Testament, and yet it's a known similarity. So it's fascinating and very awe-inspiring, really. Yeah.
Unless you're a Latter-day Saint. I think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints thought that there was a connection, but we're not. We're the Episcopal Church.
I am not educated as to that, so I can't. We'll have to.
I think it was more New York.
More
New York than Florida.
Okay.
Anyway, this is not world religions today. I think it's fascinating, and it harkens back to pneuma, right? Breath. How the Spirit is breath. All the way back to the creation, where God breathed and brings life into the earth creature, the Adam. And he does it again here,
And even the name Yahweh, right? Is when we breathe in and breathe out, it sounds like Yahweh.
It sounds like breathing.
Yeah.
And I think here again, we have this idea of this is not creation out of nothing. This is a resurrection out of lives and communities that were decimated and had died, and so we, I think we can take that as communities of faith as well, in a more metaphorical sense. That, and sometimes it's big. I was on the phone actually with the bishop just this week about communities and churches that kind of go through ebbs and flows, and in our church, in a smaller way, I think there are different pieces of our community that go through ebbs and flows. They used to do it this way at Good Shepherd, and now we might not do it that way. We might do it a new way, and how those dry bones get new life in them. And I think, and an end is always a chance for a new beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do want to say too, when he says it causes the breath to enter you, nothing's mentioned in there about spirit. And so understanding the breath is spirit in this sense, in this circumstance, is really important.
So I think if we're looking at it from a physical, dying and the stella and all of the physical ways that we die, that's one way to look at these passages. But I also think there's a metaphorical way that we can really.
It's true for community too.
It's true for community. 100%. It's for individuals. It's for things in our life that feel like they're coming to an end that we don't want to come to an end. There's that grief and hope sandwich that we kind of get to enjoy.
Absolutely.
And in great hope that we are stepping into something new.
Yes. Yeah. It's not easy.
Not easy.
Not easy.
Very challenging. Okay, Psalm 130.
Yes.
Out of the depths I have called to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears consider well the voice of my supplication. And it goes on about waiting. I wait for the Lord. My soul waits for him. In his word is my hope. And then on it goes. Any thoughts about this?
I just love my soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning. And it repeats it really as though the craving of the author's soul for the Lord is even more vigilant, even more in a state of anticipation than someone whose job it is to wait for morning before they can go home and get their own rest. So it's
I think beautiful. I have a hard time waiting sometimes. I don't think patience is, I think patience is one of my prepackaged virtues.
You're not alone.
But I don't think it's my strongest one. It's probably toward the end of the list.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. It depends on the issue.
Yeah.
If it's like a DoorDash order, I'm not patient.
Right.
But if it's like larger things in life, I'm like, it's the journey. We're going to be
journey.
fine. But I'm hungry. Right?
It's just Maslow's hierarchy of needs
right.
there. Good.
Truly.
Romans 8, 6 through 11, to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the spirit is life and peace, right? You are not in the flesh, you are in the spirit, since the Spirit of God dwells in you. If Christ is in you, though the body is dead because of sin, the spirit is life because of righteousness. If the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also through his spirit that dwells in you. I think Paul is really putting a good theological explanation on everything we've talked about here. And I would just encourage us as we read Romans, as I've been doing through the weeks, that these are powers and principalities, as Paul would kind of put them, that in the flesh is not necessarily an individualized phenomenon. It's really a way of being, and putting the mind on the spirit is also not necessarily an individualized behavior that we do. It's really a way of being that the spirit kind of does for us.
That's fascinating.
So it's that you are not in the flesh, meaning that yes, you're human, but you're not under the fleshly kind of program, right? Instead, you're in the spirit because the Spirit of God dwells in you. So you're under the spiritual program.
This one time that I've heard this used is in Maine, we have death with dignity. And this is referred to a lot in that space because it's pastorally, there has to be and the law requires a pastor or priest or someone of the cloth to be present. I don't know if the law requires, I know the law requires 2 hospice nurses, but often there's a pastor there. And this is referred to a lot, that like you're being born into this new life.
Wow.
So don't focus on the fact that the flesh is going, focus on the spirit that is going with God. And I find that really beautiful in that scenario, pastorally and theologically, estologically.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this invites us to imagine that at the end of our physical life, but it also allows us to dwell on this plane of existence, right? Through the many years that we have, hopefully, to dwell and live in that energy, in that alignment of the Spirit of God, and that will give us, all of the ways in which we might be able to share the love of God in this world and with each other.
And drawing an interesting little, if we're going to take it literally to today, the reason the mind is set on flesh is hostile to God. People spend so much time as humans focused on the wrinkles on their face, the weight they have, are they in shape enough, did they get up for that 4 a.m. wake up call to go on the 5 a.m. run, and that is all flesh driven. And it's good to be healthy and it's good to look good and feel good and all those things, but that's just not the point.
Right.
And God is, and Paul's trying to tell us that here, to keep our minds and our hearts much more concerned on the stuff that's going on inside of our hearts and minds for God. Right.
Keep the first things first.
The flesh is not, you can't take it with you. Right. We're not, hate to say it. Right. But Yeah. It's like that joke, does everyone still have Botox in heaven? We don't know. Okay. Right? Like that. Do we look the way we've changed ourselves in heaven?
What age will you be when you're?
What age? What condition? What Are my grays going to be more prominent? Like that. Yes. It's just an interesting thing, right? Yeah. Because we think of ourselves as our human embodiments, but we're just not. Right. We're all. What's the phrase? We're all spiritual beings having a human experience. Right. Exactly. That's this.
Good. So, good. Well, we are. This is our last Sunday in Lent before Palm Sunday, right? Yes. In a week we'll do Palm Sunday, And then we're in Holy Week. So we've got Holy Week with Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, the Easter Vigil, Easter Day. And then we're in the season of Easter, which is a 50-day season.
It is.
So, John is kind of ending with a couple of heavy hitters for the last couple Sundays in Lent. And we're kind of excited about that.
As are the lectionary.
The lectionary as well.
Very,
Correct.
Dense.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Hear These Words. We invite you to join us here at Good Shepherd on Sunday, whether you join us in person or on live stream, however you want to connect. We always love being with you. And now that we've been and spent this time together, we hope you feel a little more prepared to hear these words. See you soon.